Hello and welcome into Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. This live episode, watching it on YouTube, it's the playoff episode. The playoffs start tomorrow, and we're going to break down the bracket, break down the teams. We've got a bracket challenge with a giveaway on the way, and some bold predictions about the playoffs. That all and more in Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast playoff edition. Before we get to that, we'd like to hear your thoughts on the teams in the playoffs. Who's your team? Who you picking? Put that in the comments below. Join our roster. Become Barrelheads by hitting that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Go head on over to that. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. We're back with more on Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon and Baseball podcast right after this.
This is Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast, with your hosts, Brandon Spinner and Michael Burns.
Hello, and there it is. Wes jamming out. Truth be told, Wes is the one who's playing that guitar riff in our episodes every day and every week. Now, welcome in Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast live edition. You're hearing it recorded on Podcasters for Spotify, a day late if you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio podcast. But I welcome in Michael Burns, Wes Hughes. It's playoff times, baby. What's up, boys?
Gets me all excited, you know?
Yeah, you're excited.
It
don't matter who the teams are. If you're a big baseball fan, this is one of the most exciting times of the year. It's fantastic. I'm excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a bittersweet feel to it, I think, for Michael and I. But, Wes, you've got the best team in baseball here so far this year, and an exciting season as the Braves go for a World Series. So, fun times, fun baseball stuff. Before we jump into the full podcast, the full breakdown of the playoffs and what's going on, real quick, we're watching here on YouTube live. One viewer so far, but we're hoping that continues to jump up as we go throughout the episode. And if you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. We're up to 835, and if we get to 1,000, we may have something up our sleeve. That's up 50 from last week. We put out exclusive content like our Power Rankings episode, which dropped earlier this morning. So go check that out on our YouTube channel. That is at Barrels and Barrels Pod. You can find us the same handle on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We just blew up on Instagram with that Bryce Harper reel the other day. So we're just about to 2,000 Instagram followers. On X, which used to be Twitter, Barrels, the letter N, Barrels. And you can find us, as I mentioned at the top of this, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Google, as well as Amazon Podcasts. And head on over there, rate us and review us. If you give us a rating, we're at 20 out of 20 5-star reviews on Apple, 14 out of 14 on Spotify. But if you leave us a review, a handwritten note, we will read it on air and let you know. We'll react to it live.
Good or bad. We
right.
will read the trash and we will accept it, our fate there. Right. It's fun. Let's go.
Yeah. So whatever it is, leave it and tell us what you think. We're doing great. What you don't like about our podcast, we've already read about 10 or 12 of those on air before. Before we get anywhere, we do have merch. We've got T-shirts, which I'm wearing. I'm not going to lie. It's the comfiest shirt I own, and I'm not just saying that because it's got a logo on it. Anybody who's worn it has told me this is the comfiest shirt in the world. And you can get that from our friends over at CharlieMikeNeverWeekend.com. So head on over to their website. That is Charlie Mike Never Weekend, and it should be the top shirt that pops up right there on their website. So go check them out.
For good reasons.
Yeah, for good reasons. They're bestseller. That's why. You got to put it at the top. As far as our glassware, Michael's using that as he's drinking tonight. We've also got hats. You can head on over to our Instagram page. Linktree bio has the link to that. You can buy that. I believe it's $35 for a hat and $20 for one of those drinkware glasses, whether that's Tuith. I think that's what you're drinking out of, right? And then
yes,
we have a Barrels and Barrels Glencairn. I think we're down to one Wisdom, maybe two. So go check that out through the link tree in our bio. So as we jump right into it, where you do have a bourbon exclusive channel, if you want to check us out there, it's just got bourbon talk on it. No baseball, but if you're a huge bourbon fan, go check that out. It's new, but only in a month. We've already had 70 subscribers. BNB Bourbon, again, at BNB Bourbon. So we've done all the housekeeping. Now let's jump into it. Baseball talk. It is playoff season, as we mentioned, exciting time. The best time of the year. But like, I always consider it bittersweet. If your team's not in it, it's like, oh, my season's over. But this is like the best that it gets. So Let's go.
Yeah, this is where the players are digging out every ground ball, every at bat, every pitch matters, which it does. I wish some teams, it does during the regular season. Like if your team lost by one game, you can easily look back in the regular season and see. Remember that one game we kind of just let it go. That actually mattered.
2 losses to the Braves on Tuesday and Wednesday in the final week of the season, but I digress.
Drop hot fly.
Hello to
Infield Fly
Adrian.
2010.
Adrian and some Michael Burns has left a YouTube comment. So hello, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the crew. And Wes, your team was the best team in baseball. How do you feel as a Braves fan going in to the playoffs?
I'm gonna be honest, not as confident as I should be. Obviously, the offense is pretty historic. We tied the home run record at 307 with Ozuna from the Braves hitting a two-dinger yesterday.
I hear he likes to hit things pretty hard.
Yeah, and Pepes, namely. Yeah, really loud driving down Atlanta. Anyways, so I just, man, our bullpen scares me to the point where I actually looked this up. I looked up the stats the last 14 days. We have a 5.27 ERA in the last 14 days, the Braves bullpen. That's scary, man, in playoff time, especially in today's like offensive world where pitchers aren't going 7-8 innings in the playoffs anymore. Like that's just not happening. You're getting 5, maybe 6 innings out of your guys. I could see maybe Fried going that long, but he's been injured, maybe Strider, but if he's striking out a lot, I don't see him going 8-9 innings. Your bullpen has to pitch in the playoffs, especially in a 7-game series where you're getting to see the same guys over and over again for, 5 days, 6 days. Man, that's kind of scary. My hope is that the offense will continue to do what it has done all year and just carry us through those times when the bullpen kind of struggles. So that's what I'm hoping for. I would say we have probably one of, if not the weakest bullpen in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, and Joseph Campbell, avid Braves fan. You find him on Twitter, Jake Campbell, or not Twitter, on Instagram. Big guy on the old Instagram from the Bourbon Thieves. We chat every Thursday, usually in a Bourbon Thieves chat. He's a huge Braves fan down in Southern Alabama. He says the bullpen and the rotation both scare him. So banged up rotation. You had Charlie Morton, right, with the injury there, leave. Fried had a blister towards the end of the season. Obviously, a blister not as worrisome as actual muscular injuries or rotator cuff or anything like that. But yeah, the Braves, I kind of say faltered down the stretch as we got to. They didn't have as much to play for, right? Like they kind of had the whole season locked up by the early parts of September. But as you mentioned, let's talk about the final standings real quick. For those of you who don't know, Baltimore finished best in the AL, and we already talked about the Atlanta Braves, 104-58 in the NL. In the AL, it goes Baltimore, Houston, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Texas, and Toronto. Those are your seedings, as they are 101-61. Houston, the second best seed at 90-72. How bad is it for the Tampa Bay Rays? They went 99-73, and they're the 4 seed.
Yeah,
Man, I'm so amazed by what they did this year. Obviously, the Rays are always going to Ray. They're always the team. You never really expect much. They're going to tinker with everything. But if you look at the list of injuries they had this year, it's astounding. I mean, Glasnow didn't start the first 2 months of the season. He was coming back from Tommy John. Shane McClanahan had Tommy John. Springs had Tommy John. Rasmussen had Tommy John. I mean, man, their injuries, Wander Franco, that whole scenario, what they've accomplished this year. I mean, you got to tip your cap.
Yeah.
You wonder what the manager to just keep those guys pushing through all that adversity. One big guy goes down, and the manager just to keep that clubhouse rallying around each other. Who is their manager? Do you guys know who's
Kevin Cash.
Kevin Cash.
Yeah.
And he's kind of. Go ahead.
He was the same guy that pulled Snell out of the game.
Game 7, wasn't it?
Game 7, yeah, when he was absolutely dealing against the Dodgers.
Yeah. Before we get any further, I forgot to mention this episode is brought to you by Whiskey Towers. Head on over to whiskeytowers.com. Use promo code WhiskeyWeather, all caps. That'll get you 10% off your tower or anything you buy on their website, frankly, whether that is a whiskey tower, which Michael likes to call a beer tap for your bourbon, or they've got different type of handles. They've got different type of just barware that you can check out as well. 10% off your order on whiskeytowers.com. Just use that promo code scrolling there at the bottom of your screen, Whiskey Weather. So let's jump right back into the playoff talk. Tampa at 99-73. Texas Rangers finish with a tie with Houston, but because of the tiebreaker, their 90-72 record drops them all the way down to 5th. And then the Toronto Blue Jays, who kind of scuffled in the last week of the season, only going 2-4, 89-73. That locks up the 6th seed. On the NL side, Atlanta Braves 104-58, Dodgers 162, a quiet 162, I'd say. I think the Braves kind of like just took the NL that the Dodgers kind of got overshadowed through most of the year. They did have the best record in all of baseball in the second half. Number 3, the Milwaukee Brewers. Number 4, the Philadelphia Phillies. And then 5 and 6 go Miami Marlins at 84-77, not 162. They would have won game 162 yesterday, most likely anyways. But Arizona 84-78. They had the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks, so that game 162 didn't really matter. The NL, I think, is the weaker of the bunch regarding teams, right? You look, the 2 worst teams in the entire playoffs come 84-77 from Miami, 84-78 from Arizona. Is that the league that you think is the easiest to win? Or obviously we're in the playoffs. Winning baseball in the playoffs is hard, but would you rather be an NL team or would you rather be an AL team right now?
I think I'd rather be an AL team. I think the NL is full of the 2 powerhouses, and they're on either side of the NL bracket. They should meet in the NLCS, where I think the AL kind of has some piece podged together teams a little bit. They're not all put together like the NL has 2 powerhouses a little bit. I say that about Baltimore winning 101 games. Their rotation and bullpen just keep defying odds, as well as Tampa Bay's rotation, like Wes went off about. But
what do you think, Wes? AL, NL?
I think that's tough, but I think I probably agree with Burns as far as the Braves and the Dodgers, 2 powerhouse teams that have both been there and both won a World Series in the past few years. Obviously, you got Houston on the other side, but if you look at the other teams in the AL, it's riddled with a lot of teams that don't have much playoff experience in the last few years. Baltimore hasn't been there, in a while. Rays have been there, but they're injury riddled. Somehow they just keep winning. Hey, whatever. Rangers and Minnesota and Toronto, they just don't have much playoff experience on their rosters. So I would say with the Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, and even Milwaukee, those 4 teams have all been in the playoffs consistently the last few years. So more experience on the NL side, and I think more ceiling on the NL side than you would have on the AL side.
And I think I'm going to agree as well. I think the top heaviness in the NL is just so much stronger, right? Like, you've got the 2 best teams in baseball in the second half between the Braves and the Dodgers. And then Milwaukee has been chugging. They're 20 games above 500 at the deadline. I don't think that they were that much past 500. I think they were, 3 or 4 games ahead of the Cubs, and the Cubs were like 61-60 at the time. So they really shut things down, or shut other teams down in the second half, especially late August and into September. And then Philly, the reigning NL champs last year, right? And they brought a lot of that team back and upgraded it. So
I think, like you said, they were overshadowed by the big Atlanta powerhouse. They were 90-72. That's
14 games back.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So they're definitely a good team.
Yeah. If you make the playoffs, most likely you're a good team. Obviously, Major League Baseball changed things. It used to be only 10 teams with that 1-game wild card. Now it is 6 teams, and we've got a little more extra playoff baseball. It's a best-of-3 series as we move on into the first round of the playoffs. Before we jump into that, I have it written down on our agenda, but I want to flip-flop something. Let's go with our bold playoff predictions right off the top, because some of them may impact what our brackets are actually going to look like, and I didn't want to kind of spoil the bold prediction. So I'm going to go with my first bold prediction, and it's not going to make Wes happy. And
Oh,
it's
no.
that the Atlanta Braves will not win the World Series this year. That is my bold prediction. It may not
That's all.
I mean, sorry. I'm just going with the fact that in the last 35 seasons, dating back to 1986, only 7 teams that had the best record in the season, and I'm not including the 2020 Dodgers because that season and that series was all wackadoodle and just way crazy.
It don't count.
It doesn't count, right? So, and even in 1994, there wasn't a World Series because of the strike. So, out of the last 35 seasons of 162 games, only 7 of the last 35 teams that had the best record actually went on to win the World Series. And really, it was 2 franchises who held that, and that was the Yankees and the Red Sox. The Cubs did it in 2016 and the New York Mets in 1986. But really, the only other teams who have done it were the Yankees and Red Sox multiple times. As you mentioned, the team faltered down the stretch. Their pitching is not where it was early in the season, and really that's their weakness. And I think pitching is what wins you championships when it comes to the postseason. Pitching and home runs. They've got the home runs, but I don't know if their pitching is going to be able to do it. So that's my bold prediction, is the Atlanta Braves will not win the World Series.
It's pretty bold because ESPN's playoff preview article had different sections of what makes this team great, what's going to make them advance to the World Series, and what makes them be able to beat the Braves. Each team preview had that section of how can they beat the Braves. So, I mean, for the Braves to not win it all there, it's pretty bold.
Yeah, and if you were to look at FanGraphs' playoff odds and their percentages, the Braves have a 26.1% chance of winning the World Series. That is better than 1 in 4. There are 12 teams in this playoffs. They have a better than 25% chance at winning the World Series. So that's my bold prediction. Michael.
So my bold prediction here is that every single wild card series will be a sweep. There won't be any game 3. Every single wild card series, Blue Jays, Twins, Texas Rays, Arizona, Milwaukee, and Miami, Philly, will be one-sided. There won't be any game 3.
That's a good one. Last year we had Cleveland beat Tampa in a sweep, but the Seattle and Houston, was that a sweep as well?
Yeah, I think so.
It was.
Seattle was so close every game.
Yep. And then actually Seattle was that was the next round. That was the ALDS. So who did Seattle beat last year in the first round of the playoffs? I'm trying to remember. Was it the Cleveland beat Tampa? The Yankees? Was it Seattle beat the Yankees, didn't they? I think they swept they beat the Yankees in 3 games. It was
the Yankees beating them and then the Yankees winning the next round too.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
So that went 3 games, and then on the NL side, the Phillies, I think, swept St. Louis out of the playoffs. And I can't remember who the Brewers played in the first round last year, but I don't think that they won either. Oh, the Padres. Right, the Padres. So Brewers didn't even make the playoffs last year. Duh, Brandon. Whatever. But moving on. So that's a bold prediction. So we're only going to have baseball on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. That's as
Seattle
far as
beat Toronto.
Oh, that's who it was. The Yankees.
Yeah, so Seattle beat Toronto, then they lost to Houston. Cleveland swept Tampa, and then New York beat Cleveland.
That's who it was. Yeah. And then Houston beat the Yankees to go to the World Series. That's what it was. Yep.
Anyways, sorry to derail. Let's keep rolling.
No, thanks for the update and the fact checking. And thank you to the 6 of you joining us this evening. Send us a comment. Let us know what you think about our bold predictions in the comment section below. We'll pop up your comment if you put it in there. If you don't want to put it in there, just say don't put my comment on the screen. But bold predictions. Wes, what you got?
So mine is kind of similar to yours, but it was kind of blasphemous. I couldn't pick the Atlanta Braves to not go to the World Series. So my bold prediction is that the Dodgers and Astros will not move out of the championship series. So they're losing their first series.
Not move out of the
series.
Moving into the
DS.
championship. DS,
Okay.
yeah. So they're not going to the championship series. The Dodgers and Astros are going to get put out.
To pasture. That's a bold one. 2 of the best teams in the last 6-7 years, right?
One of the most playoff experienced teams.
Yeah, the Houston Astros have been in the World Series every year
7
for
years
like
in a row.
Every year.
yeah, for like 5 years in a row, and then the Dodgers won in 2020, and then in 2018, I believe, is who they lost to, the Red Sox, and then in 2017 they lost. So yeah, one of the most storied franchises here over the last couple, and they're not even going to make it to the championship series. That is a bold one. That is a bold one. May not be so bold. A team from the NL East will be in the NLCS, says Joe. Well, being that entire side of the bracket, there are 3 teams in the NL East. It is the NL East side of the bracket, and that is the wild card round of the Phillies in Miami, and then the winner heads to the Braves. Very bold, Joe. Very bold.
That is pretty interesting how the whole one side of the bracket is all
It's
NL
all
East
East teams.
teams.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the 1 seed, the 4 seed, and the 5 seed. And what's crazy is the Phillies still had a 5.5 game lead over Miami for the next best seed. That's just how good that AL East was, and really the NL East was as well, because both were the two who had 3 teams in the playoffs, the AL East and the NL East. I have another bold prediction. It may not be terribly bold, but I think it's quite bold, being how their history has been as of recent history. The Minnesota Twins will not only win a game, they will win a playoff series. For the first time since 2002. They've lost 18 straight playoff games, not just series, 18 straight playoff games, going all the way back, I believe, to 2004 versus the Yankees when they won the first game and then got swept away through the rest of that series. But their last playoff series victory was against the 2002 Moneyball Oakland A's. So that's how long it's been since they last won a playoff series. I think that they win a playoff series, and they could potentially win 2.
I got a sneak preview. I will say that I filled out 2 brackets. One prior to the Woodruff
like the
news,
NCAA.
and one, yeah,
One of them's gonna go.
In one of those brackets, I did pick Minnesota to win 2 series.
Wow. Well, there's a teaser. There's a teaser. Michael, do you have another bold playoff prediction?
No, but I wanted to pose a question to you guys a little bit of who is your biggest surprise not to make the playoffs?
Not to make the playoffs. Easy for me is probably the San Diego Padres. Yeah.
Padres, yeah.
Right.
And they actually ended up pretty close. Closer than anybody would have expected. 82-80. The Padres had the best record in the month of September. They only finished 2 games behind the Diamondbacks. And on top of all of that, they were 2-12 in extra inning games. Had they won 3 of those 12 losses, they'd be in as the number 6 seed right now.
If only Josh Hader would pitch some 4-out saves, they'd be in it.
Oh, man.
I still want Josh Hader in the offseason.
Absolutely.
What a letdown.
Yeah.
What a letdown.
Well, it's the amount of money they put into that team.
Yeah.
I saw a statistic, though, that they were 1, 2, or 3 in most major categories in all of baseball this year, and they still didn't make the playoffs just because of that. I mean, their 1-run record and their their extra inning record was so garbage that you didn't win the close games. Do you have another bold prediction, Wes, or was that yours?
No, I do have another one. And I'm gonna have to do a little more research on this because I tried to look it up today. Took about an hour and a half to try and research this, and I couldn't find it. But my bold prediction is that in this offensive environment, we're gonna see more runs scored in this playoff than any other playoff in the last 20 years.
Ooh,
All right.
I like it. With all the stolen bases, singles turning into doubles.
Yeah, and the pitch clock probably creating some issues, I bet you, in the playoffs. This is going to be the first postseason with the pitch clock, where we're talking expectations of maybe pitch clock violations.
No shift.
Yeah, no shift.
It means Kyle Schwarber might actually hit a single.
Doubtful. We saw that didn't happen this season. 47 home runs. I don't know how many singles he had this year, but I know at one point he was still hitting more home runs than singles so far this season. I do have one more bold prediction, and it is about those Philadelphia Phillies, and it is that the Philadelphia Phillies will be back in the World Series this year.
Oh, gut punch, Wes.
God,
Gut punch.
Well, the
that's
first
2
one.
for 2.
Well, the first one should have been the biggest gut punch, and then you had to know that most likely something was going to happen with that bracket. But that's a sneak peek into my bracket, as Wes put it out there. And our bracket challenge is going to happen again this year. Last year we did it. We're going to be doing a giveaway. So go download this bracket. I'm going to pop it up on your screen for you. It is in the Linktree bio. So head on over, go download that. And what you have to do is fill this out. You're having to put a tiebreaker as well for the total amount of runs scored in the World Series, and that will be the tiebreaker for if for some reason we end up with a tie in the World Series at the end. But how it works is you get 1 point for every wild card series winner you predict. You get 2 points for every ALDS and NLDS winner you predict. You get 4 points if you can correctly predict an ALCS or an LCS winner, and if you get the World Series winner correct, that is 7 points, similar to how an NCAA bracket is run. So again, that tiebreaker is however many runs you think will be combined in the World Series. For perspective, I believe there were 40 runs scored last year in the World Series in the 6 games between the Astros and the Phillies. So there's again that
over.
bracket. You'll take
Yeah, I'm taking the over.
So head on over to our Linktree bio. That is in our Instagram. Also, in order to be eligible to win, you have to be subscribed to our podcast. So if you haven't done that already, Joseph, oof, on the old and the Phillies. So head on over to our Instagram page, as I mentioned. Go download that. And then email it to us. And you'll email that to us and send that to barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. Everything is scrolling right there at the bottom of your screen. You just must be subscribing to one of our YouTube channels in order to be eligible. If you want to subscribe to both, subscribe to both. We'd love that, especially if you are a huge bourbon fan. So let's jump right into the bourbon. Or not the bourbon. I haven't had any today.
I
wish. Let's jump right into the bracket challenge and the bracket predictions. So how do we want to do this? Do we want to go
Series by series?
Series by series? Let's do
Let's
that.
go series by series.
Alrighty. So, Wes, let's start with you. Minnesota and Toronto. I think you kind of already gave your hint away on that, but
Well, which bracket this guy going with?
yeah, we gotta pick one
All right.
bracket.
All right, so
One-
I filled out a bracket prior to the Woodruff news, and then I filled one out after the Woodruff news
Okay.
because Milwaukee without Brandon Woodruff, it's kind of tough. That's tough for me. Sure, on Corbin Burns, and you saw there Arizona starting with that. Anyways, we'll skip back over to Minnesota and Toronto. So I went with Minnesota here for a few reasons. One, playoff baseball is typically about the team that gets hot at the right time, and the Minnesota Twins are the second hottest team right now. Behind us, Philadelphia Phillies, unfortunately. But Minnesota not only is scoring, I mean, they've scored over the last 14 days, they've scored the second most runs behind the Braves, right? On top of that, their bullpen's they're fourth in ERA, and their starters are kind of middle of the pack as far as ERA. But they're getting hot at the right time. On top of that, Toronto is 4-6 in their last 10 games. Like you said, Brandon, earlier, they're scuffling down the stretch. So I'm right there with you as far as Minnesota kind of getting over the hump and winning a series. Moving on.
Michael Burns.
Yeah, I've got the Minnesota Twins as well. Toronto does have an ace type pitcher in Kevin Gausman. Some of these teams in the playoffs don't have an ace. The Blue Jays do have that in Gausman, but I think the Minnesota Twins are deeper at that. You only need 2 starters, 2 wins. And if the Twins are able to just pull some of their best pitchers and pitch the best pitchers during the games, Sonny Gray, Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, so at least a 3-headed monster. I think there's a 4th there, right?
O'Bear, right?
Yeah,
O'Bear, sneaky guy in the second half there. But for all the reasons Wes said, they would have had the second most runs scored in the second half, and they were one of the hottest teams in the month of September.
You know who their 5th starter is?
Kenta Maeda.
Yeah, Kenta Maeda. It's been a long time since I heard that that name in a while. But also, they were relying on Dallas Keuchel at some point earlier in the season as well. He's on the injured list, but and I think he pitched fairly well when he was in the Twins rotation. I am also going with the Twins. You already heard that in my bold prediction, but you already touched on it. Was the Twins scored more runs than anybody in the month of September, and it wasn't even really close. I think they beat the Braves by like 10 runs or so. The third most was the Chicago Cubs. So the Minnesota Twins, they're scoring runs. I go back to August 1st, kind of like if you're looking at crunch time, right? The last 2 months of the season, I would consider crunch time. They have the 8th best ERA. It's actually tied with Toronto, but I mean, that Twins rotation with Pablo and Sonny Gray, who are up there as top 10 pitchers in baseball for most of the year this year. I'm leaning on that Twins team. They're at home, Target Field. It's going to be rocking, I think, because Minnesota has not been in the best playoff situation over the last several years. That I think that fan base is going to come out, and also that offense, like we've just touched on and talked about. It's been one of the hottest, and as you mentioned, the hot teams generally are the teams that win going into the playoffs.
I'll say this too. If Royce Lewis is able to come back from the hamstring,
I was just about to say, yep.
Oh man, their lineup actually looks kind of scary, and people are going to learn. If you guys, if you're watching this and you don't know the name Edouard Julien, this kid can hit, man. He can hit. Royce Lewis is apparently Babe Ruth when he's healthy. I mean, the guy hit 3 grand slams, I think, in 4 days.
Four in the
grand
span
slams
of 8 days in 8 games.
Yeah. He's got like 5 in his career and like, what, 80 games total, I think you saw? Yeah.
Their lineup's getting hot at the right time, guys, and that is typically bodes well for playoff baseball.
Right.
Yeah. So on that note, both the Twins and the Marlins are in the playoffs. They had a huge trade in the offseason. I think they both won the trade. Luis.
That's one of those rare trades that works out for both sides, right?
Yeah, it really helped Auburn. Sorry, Joe is a huge Auburn fan, so War Damn Eagle, baby.
Joe, don't look at my background.
Moving on. So let's go to the next round in that AL. That is the Texas Rangers traveling to the Tampa Bay Rays. Are you going to any of the games? That's the first question, Wes.
Oh, I will find a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll find a way over to the stadium across the
I might have to take a helicopter over there, but we'll find a way to get in the stadium.
By the 3rd inning.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I forgot to do this. So my first round, the Twins win their series. Okay.
There
Wes, Rangers or Rays?
Yeah, I got the Rays in this one. If the Rangers had Jacob deGrom, had Scherzer, I might feel differently about this. I don't necessarily feel. Yeah, well, who knows? You know. They were planning on having him, but man, I just every time somebody else for the Rays gets hurt, they bring up somebody else like a Junior Caminero, and you find out how good he is, and then they suddenly start winning games. I just don't know how to explain it other than the fact that they just have some type of camaraderie where in that clubhouse, they go in every day and they're going to win. They don't care if a kid's 17, 24, 35, if he's an all-star, if he's a rookie, it doesn't matter. They just win. So I gotta go Rays here.
Michael Burns.
Yeah, I really like the Texas Rangers offense. I like what Evan Carter's been doing to really get a pep in the Rangers offense step a little bit. Adolis Garcia is making the Cardinals cry over giving him away to the Texas Rangers, but they don't have the pitching. Jordan Montgomery can't do this whole thing. Aroldis Chapman can't secure a big inning. I just like what the Tampa Bay Rays have been doing all year. They started hot. They went through adversity. Through the second half, they just continued to defy all the odds that Brandon kept thinking that they were just going to continue to fall.
Brandon. Michael Burns was one of the ones who also said the same thing.
I said Brandon and I.
Oh, I thought you just said Brandon.
I said
I didn't hear
Brandon.
the
No, I said
I.
Brandon. I said Brandon and I. They kept defying all the odds, everything that we threw at them. I got the Tampa
Yes.
Bay Rays moving on.
Just popped up a comment on the screen. Brandon pulling a Lee Corso. I like it. So you have the Rays moving on. Here is my Texas Rangers hat. The Texas Rangers have one of the best offenses in baseball. They've been a great team pretty much since the start of the year. They had, though, Heckle and Jide second half, right? They were.
Right.
This was the most roller coaster team I think I've seen, right? They'd win 7 in a row, then they'd lose 8 in a row. Then they'd win 6 in a row and sweep a playoff team, and then they'd get swept by a playoff team. But the Texas Rangers have one of the best offenses in baseball. However, I'm going with the Tampa Bay Rays to move on. I would put this on, but I would mess up with the mic. But you'll like this one. Evan Longoria, number 3 jersey. So the Tampa Rays moving on for me. They continue to defy the odds on everything. They've got a tight-knit team. Yandy Diaz having a great year. Paredes, didn't he hit 30 bombs this year?
30
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Who knew
that?
Yeah, who is this guy?
Former Cubs prospect, just saying. Traded for, who was it? I believe that was the Alex Avila trade. Maybe the Rangers rely on streaks. Streaking is bad form in the playoffs. That's correct, DE. So as we're moving forward, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays. 99 wins. Hard to go against that in one of the best divisions, if not the best division in baseball. Yeah.
Do you think the Rangers, how bad are they wishing they would have won one more game and gotten that round bye from the Houston Astros?
Oh, yeah. They totally need it.
Huge.
So-
They went to the powerhouse side of that bracket with the Rays and Baltimore, I think is the powerhouse side.
Yeah. They would have the winner of what would have been the Minnesota and Blue Jays series had they just won one more game.
Right.
Definitely disappointing for them, especially with how good they were. I think they started out 32-18, which was like the best record in franchise history, tied for the best 50-game start. Just in the pitching, I mean, they've had one of the worst bullpens in baseball in the month of September. I think it was the worst. They have the 6th worst ERA. In September, their ERA was 5.17. That is 6. Don't look at who was the 3rd worst. That's the Atlanta Braves.
I already did.
I already did.
But that's just as a rotation all around. If you look at it when it comes to the relief pitching, they also had the 6th worst, which was a 5.08 ERA. So just abysmal when it came time to be the team that needed to be winning games. They swept, who was it? They swept Seattle the weekend before, and then they almost got swept in Seattle. So too inconsistent for me, and that Tampa Bay Rays team just continues to be consistent, and that's what I'm going with.
Yep. Absolutely.
So we have all picked the same teams. You know what that normally means?
Yeah, that's
It's
kind
not
of
gonna-
odd. It's definitely not happening.
Yes. Let's move into the NL side. The 3 seed Milwaukee Brewers will be hosting the Arizona Diamondbacks at American Family Field, which is actually Miller Park, but nobody really cares. The Brewers, as you mentioned, got a pitching injury. Really, both teams, the question mark will be pitching. As of this morning when I was looking at the matchups, now it does look like they have slated Zach Gallen for Game 2, so he will be pitching, but the Brewers still have TBA or TBD. What does that do to your bracket? Yeah, most likely, but
If
West-
it goes down to a Game 3, it's crap against crap. Arizona does not have a number 3. Milwaukee does
Merrill
not
Kelly
have a number.
Merrill Kelly is slated for number 3 right now.
Okay, so if it came down to a Game 3, if it came down to a Game 3, I would like Arizona in that spot. But I don't know that it does get there. I think Milwaukee will shut them down the first 2 games. I really, really, really want to pick Arizona, but like someone just streaking's bad for the form of the playoffs. Arizona is on a losing kind of streakiness right now. If they were hot right now, I'd be picking Arizona over Milwaukee right now with Corbin Carroll. Alec Thomas was running all over the place. Tommy Pham was hot. Lourdes Gurriel was doing well. but they're just not hot right now. And Milwaukee has just not even just the two of Burns and Peralta on top of Woodruff if he was healthy, but Devin Williams, the dude throws his changeup 50% of the time, and batters are batting under 100 against his changeup, 0.098 against his changeup.
Yeah.
The bullpen is doing fantastic too. So the Brewers have starting pitching and a bullpen, and they've got fantastic defense on behind them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add one more name to that bullpen, Burns. If you haven't seen Abner Uribe pitch, you need to watch him.
The
If
rookie.
the rookie. So if you go into Fangraphs Stuff Plus, and Enos tweets about this all the time, his slider, Uribe's slider, grades out at a 191. The second best, that's number one across the board. The second best is Jacob deGrom at 172.
That's sick.
He also throws 100. So,
and then they've got Joel Payamps, right? Payamps.
Yeah, Payamps.
Yeah, who 2.55 ERA in 70 innings with a 1.05 WHIP and 77 Ks. So that bullpen is going to be one of those that if you get to it with the lead, you're almost locking in the W, most likely. Now, my question would be, who would be that third starter? Because Woodruff's most likely to miss that first series. I do like Wade Miley as an option for the Brewers. If healthy, he's a veteran who's been there. He's done that. He'd be going against his former team. I think he came up with Arizona, didn't he? I know he pitched with Arizona.
Who's that, Wade Miley?
Yeah. He pitched for Arizona. I know he pitched for Boston, Cubs, Brewers, Reds. He's been all over the place. He's a seasoned veteran who's going to give you a chance to win day in and day out. So I wonder if they go with that. I know Hauser pitched against the Cubs on Sunday, so Thursday would probably be pushing it on short rest. I don't think that they want to do that. They may go with a bullpen day kind of day. So that's the question. I am also, we're chalk here. We're all going. I'm going with the Milwaukee Brewers on this. I just think that the Arizona Diamondbacks petered out too late on this because he hasn't been. Oh well, here's a comment for you. Orion Kirking hasn't pitched enough innings. His slider is for real. So that's another name to watch. If the
I'll make a comment on that. Kirkring was right behind Uribe as far as relief pitchers. His slider graded out, I think, at like a 176, and Uribe's was like a 191. But I also watched Orion Kirkring pitch at South Florida, and wrote a report on him. Just his slider's unreal. It's unhittable when it's on. Love the Kirkring though.
Yeah. So Joe says if the Brewers make it out of that first series, they become my favorite dark horse to run the table. I hope not. I do think that they will rally. I do think that they rally behind Craig Counsell. Craig Counsell in his final season under contract right now could be in a new uniform. Oh, that's right. I got to do this. I got to change the hats. But yeah, it's. I don't think that Diamondbacks team has much left in the tank, and they're throwing Brandon Pfaadt in game one, so you could be behind the 8 ball from the get-go.
They're throwing Pfaadt in game one?
That's what they got.
Yeah.
It's Pfaadt, Gallen, and then Merrill Kelly. At the time I made this graphic, they hadn't announced game 2 or game 3. The Brewers still don't have a game 2 or game 3, but yeah, Pfaadt will go first. So here's the first 3 series. The first series, Texas at Tampa. All 3 games would be at 3:08 Eastern. That would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And also for Toronto and Minnesota, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, game 1, 2, and 3 all at the same time, 4:38. And then the Diamondbacks and Brewers, the nightcap for an East Coast, that's 7:08. And then the 4th series, Miami at Philadelphia. These were the only 2 teams that had both their starters announced for games 1 and 2. So who is your pick, Wesley?
This one was a tough one for me, truthfully, because I don't have much confidence in Aaron Nola.
Ooh.
He just hasn't been great this year. I don't know, man. He gives up a lot of hard contact. He's given up a lot of home runs this year. But, Wheeler in game 1, Nola game 2. I don't know who they'll go with in game 3. Truthfully, it might be a Christopher Sanchez. I don't know. But This one was real tough for me, man, but it's just hard for me to bet against the Phillies lineup. I mean, there are so many superstars on that team, and they've been here. They went to the World Series last year. They're the hottest team coming in right now. It's hard for me to bet against them. But look, I got to give credit to Kim Ng. And we talked about the Yankees a little bit, and we go a little bit off track here. 3 years ago, the Marlins were the laughing stock of baseball. Kim Ng takes over, leaves the Yankees, by the way. And you see what happened to the Yankees once she left, and now that she's in Miami. Hey, man, shout out to it. Like, love that. But I got to go with Phillies here, man. It's just very hard to bet against them and their lineup.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there, Wes. If Sandy Alcantara and Yuri Perez were healthy, this would be a much more exciting series. That would be a
Definitely.
three-headed monster of Sandy, Yuri, and Jesus Luzardo. I mentioned it, I think, on the Power Rankings episode to Brandon. Jesus Luzardo would have had like a 15-win season if they had shored up their bullpen, which has been a mess all year. They traded for David Robertson. He didn't work out. But you see Jesus Luzardo starting game one versus Zach Wheeler. That's going to be a pitching duel right there. But I think the Philly bullpen and rotation is deeper, and they're going to come out on top.
Yeah, you've already said it, Michael. The Marlins, I think, probably would have had the two best pitchers probably in this series if they had been healthy. But Wheeler is going to be the best pitcher in the series, and Aaron Nola had one of his worst seasons of his career. Not great. But the Phillies, that offense is wrecking it. And
I will say, too, the Miami bullpen has had some struggles down the stretch. I mean, Robertson, Tanner Scott, AJ Puck. I mean, they've struggled pretty mightily. Meanwhile, the Phillies, I think it was Joe that mentioned Orion Kirkring. This dude is nasty. I mean,
that was Dave, but yes.
Dave mentioned it. Yeah, man. Kirkring's nasty. I mean, they just have some weapons in their bullpen that are really going to matter, game 2, game 3 when it comes down to it.
Yeah, the Phillies have the 4th best ERA in the month of September. The Marlins have the 5th worst at a 5.16 ERA going in. And, I mean, this Phillies teams, we already talked about it. They've been there. They went to the World Series last year. Bryce Harper has been one of the best players, if not the best player in the second half. Between him, Mookie, Acuna, and Seiya Suzuki, ironically, all having the 4 highest OPSs and WAR through the final parts of the season. It's hard for me to go against the Phillies, especially against lefties. They've got an OPS in the season of 780 versus left-handed pitching. So, yeah.
Is that a first-round sweep?
Yeah, all of us having the
have the exact same prediction in all 4. There's no way. We didn't talk about this beforehand.
So Dave says Wheeler wins, Nola loses, if Rangers win, or Ranger wins. So I wonder if they'll go with him, or is Taijuan Walker healthy? He's been their 3 all year, and that's who they signed to basically be the 3. Deeper pitching, superior offense, Philly. Bleh. And here's another one from Dave Edwards. As long as Kimbrel never pitches. Yeah. Craig Kimbrel, man, he's
roller coaster ride of a year, man.
Yeah, his arm is dead, he said. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't have a Phillies hat. I haven't been to Citizens Bank yet, so I don't have their hat. I was going to joke and pull out the old Marlins hat, but throwing that away, the Marlins are out. So are the Texas Rangers. So, moving on.
Careful, Brandon. There's a lot of bourbon behind you.
I've thrown him off to this side. So moving on, I'm going to put the Barrels and Barrels hat right back on, and you can always go grab that on our website, or not our website, but our Linktree website on our Instagram page. So we're heading on into the ALDS, Minnesota versus Houston. That is what all 4 of us have. Who do you have, Wes, in that round of the series?
Man, I got Minnesota. I mean, I do. I hate to say it. I trust Verlander. I trust Framber Valdez a little bit. He's also had the tendency to give up some home runs. Outside of those 2 guys, I don't know who I trust for the Astros.
You don't like your boy Hunter Brown? You don't like your boy Hunter Brown?
No, I couldn't even start him in fantasy, man. I had to bench him like for the last 3 weeks. He was not good. He hit a wall, right? Like he hit an innings limit, and you could tell. Like
Yeah.
their bullpen is just kind of average. They don't really have the horses. I mean, they got like someone like with Brian Abreu that can come in and give you 3-4 innings in the scenario where there is a blow up in the first or second inning, but I don't know. Houston just doesn't give me much confidence. They've been playing well. They have a great offense, but right now Minnesota has the offense to match them, and I got more confidence in Minnesota's rotation and bullpen. And that's hard to say.
Mm-hmm. Michael?
I think Minnesota is this year's Philly. They have put together a good team, but they're not quite there yet. I think Verlander and Framber can take game 1 and 2 from them, and that's not even their strength. Their strength is their offense. As long as Altuve and Bregman are hot, Alvarez is going to pimp one out in Minute Maid Park there onto the railroad tracks.
Opposite field.
Opposite field.
Opposite
right.
field.
Opposite field, baby. He will pimp one out there like he is able to. But I'm not even counting on Verlander and Framber. I'm counting on the Astros offense to take it over Minnesota, and Houston advances to the ALCS.
To the ALCS. He has the Houston Astros. This one was a tough one for me. The Houston Astros just kind of came up and pulled the rug out from everybody and took that 2 seed, where they almost had they lost one of the games versus Seattle earlier in the week, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs right now because they'd be tied with Seattle, and Seattle had the tiebreaker. So they were 1 game out of making the playoffs. They sneak in. Dusty Baker's continuously getting this team deep into the playoffs. Maybe it's I picked the Astros to win it all last year, and they ended up doing it. I just don't see it this year. Not often do you have a team make it back-to-back years into the World Series. Fatigue does become an issue. Verlander's old. I do trust him, though. You've got Framber. And then from there, there's question mark, right? Is Javier back? Is he going to be the 3? No. Hunter Brown?
Well, if they have to go with a guy, it'll probably be him. As their game 3 guy, but
the one thing that
I don't know, that's tough. He hasn't been great.
Yeah, I'm going to Dave. I'm going to go away now before I hear all of you pick the Braves. Come back, Dave. Come back. Yeah, that Astros team just doesn't seem as deep as it was last year. They've got injuries. They just haven't been as effective. Their offense is good. And the thing that scares me is they will have the rest, and they will be able to set their rotation, and Minnesota is going to be battling potentially a 3-game series versus Toronto. Who knows? But they've got the deeper rotation in my mind, and pitching wins, and pitching continues to win. But I think it's going to be Minnesota. That's who I'm going with in my bracket on that side of the bracket, and Minnesota heads on to the ALCS. So the Minnesota Twins, where's that hat? There we go. So, Astros, see ya. So the other side of that AL bracket, the Tampa Bay Rays and the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles have been the best team in the American League pretty much since June, since passing Tampa Bay or whenever it was. Maybe it was in July. But since then, outside of being tied towards the end of the season, they've kind of controlled that AL East. AL East matchup here. Wes, thoughts?
Tough one. I got Baltimore for a couple reasons. One, I think Kyle Bradish has been the best pitcher in baseball, like the second half that basically nobody knows about. And I think Grayson Rodriguez is finally coming into his own as far as being a true ace. Love their bullpen. I think they have some real weapons there. I think DL Hall is finally kind of commanding his stuff. Cano has taken the reins as the closer. I just love their entire team. I mean, like I honestly don't see any weaknesses. So the only thing I can say is that they're just not that experienced in the playoffs because they have a real young team. So I think that's the only thing the Rays really have over the Orioles. But man, they just have such a good offense that I feel like can score on anybody. and I think that's going to kind of carry them through. And I would love to be in Camden Yards for a playoff game. That's a dream. Somebody fly me there. I'll be
Birdland. So Wes is going with the Baltimore Orioles on the ALCS side of things. Michael Burns, who do you have, Tampa or Baltimore?
I'm with Wes there. I've got Baltimore coming into it strong. The offense is going to just carry them all the way to the ALCS. I think Tampa Bay's rotation will be petered out by then. The bullpen, the Baltimore has 3 or 4 lefties in their bullpen that can just dominate. I think Felix Bautista was one of their few righties, actually.
Yeah.
But Gunnar Henderson's going to get hot at the right time, and Cedric Mullins has been around for the bad teams. He's going to be part of this team that's going to head to the ALCS.
And I'm going to make that a clean sweep. I have Baltimore moving on. So here we go. Baltimore hat. There we go. Let's get that going. Tampa Bay, you're done. You brought it up, Wes. Kyle Bradish, 2.34 ERA, second best in baseball amongst qualified pitchers in the second half, only behind the NL Cy Young winning Blake Snell, most likely. He had a better ERA than Garrett Cole. On top of that, Grayson Rodriguez finished 5th, third best in the AL. And then if you go all the way down to 17th, Dean Kramer was the 17th best in baseball in the second half at a 3.25 ERA. We've been crapping on their pitching rotation. Me and Michael have, at least, for the last couple of months of the season. Thank you, ELC, for joining in. But, I mean, that Baltimore team continues to just win. Win. You mentioned that there's no real weakness on that team except the fact that they're not experienced. But if you look at that manager, Brandon Hyde, he's been on experienced teams. He was the bench coach of the Cubs when they won the World Series in 2016. He's been there. He's done that. Look at what Davey Martinez did with that Nationals team in 2019 in a similar position. Well, I guess Davey was the bench coach. Hyde was the first base coach and then took over the bench coach afterwards. But he was the bench
they've been
coach.
there.
He's been there. He understands how to win. The players are young, and sometimes that works, right? You have young players, and it's almost one of those like ignorant kind of things. They don't know what they don't know. And it's one of those where they don't maybe know the pressure because they don't have to feel it. They're too young to feel it.
Yeah. I can see that. I can see that.
They just come through a system where all they know is winning. That's what they try to teach at every single level. You see, I'm just using the Cubs as an example. The Cubs single A won it last year. Their double A won it this year. And that you just teach these kids winning ways. Yeah. And that's what Baltimore has right now.
Winning organizations. So that is our AL side of the bracket. We will get to the ALCS here in a second. Let's head on over to the NLDS, the Dodgers and the Brewers. That's our consensus between all three of us. I think you kind of already gave it away, Wes. Did that change your thoughts with the Woodruff news, or are you still sticking with the Dodgers?
Yeah, I'm still sticking with the Dodgers. I mean, the Brewers.
Oh.
I am.
Excuse me.
I am.
Whoa.
Nah, I'm kidding you. No, I got the Dodgers, man. I originally
got to rewrite this down.
Sorry. No, so I originally going into that matchup, I was thinking, all right, Kershaw and Burns game 1, right? Presumably. Assume the Dodgers are going to take that.
May not even be Burns because he's pitching in game 1. So if he's pitching Saturday, it could be
right. He might not, right?
Yeah.
Who else do the Dodgers have that you trust? Pepio or Miller or Yarbrough?
Lance Lynn? You don't trust Lance Lynn?
No, I don't. No, the back end of their bullpen is very strong. Between Evan Phillips and Bruce Gratterall, love those guys, and they have a great offense. But man, like in that matchup, I originally had Burns, Peralta, and Woodruff, and I'm like, that's tough to go against those guys. That might be the best 3 in baseball.
I don't know. Did you see Mikey's ERA this year? That Burns wasn't the best, but sorry, we're talking about a different Burns.
You going to my senior league stats here?
Yeah. How many home runs did you get up?
0.
Yeah. Okay.
How many did they give up in the entire league? Probably like 3 total.
And that was 9.
Mikey, Burnsy.
I've got the two-headed monster and Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts carrying them into it. I think Clayton Kershaw. I have confidence in Bobby Miller to get it done, and then Emmett Shaheen could come in, and he's a strikeout machine. I think he could go give you 4 quality innings, and the bullpen just clean it up for him. You got Joe Kelly, Brewstar Gratterall.
Mm-hmm.
Murdered that one, but you know who I was talking about.
Just call him Gratterall.
Gratterall.
Caleb Ferguson, who's been pretty solid, I believe, at times this year.
And Ryan Brazier came over from the Red Sox. The Dodgers are just making a mockery of everything the Red Sox throw away.
Real quick, do you know how many pitchers the Dodgers have on the 60-day IL? Not just the IL in general, the 60-day IL?
I can tell you only because I have it pulled up.
8. 8. Walker Buehler, Blake Trinan, Gus Varland, Tyler Sear, Alex Reyes, Daniel Hudson, J.P. Frierson, and Jimmy Nelson. Jimmy Nelson, there's a name. Milwaukee Brewer pitcher. He would probably love to pitch in this series. Yeah, you went to the Dodgers. I think this is going to be the lowest scoring series of them all. You have the two best pitching staffs in the last 2 months of the season, in August and in September. And when you look at it as a relieving core, the Dodgers 2.12 ERA in September, the Brewers 2.16, two best in baseball. When you look all the way back to August 1st, the pitching staffs in general, the Dodgers are in second at 3.29, the Brewers are 3.03. So whoever you're throwing out there, offense is going to be hard to come by. LA though, in LA, you've got Kershaw, who generally isn't the best in the playoffs, honestly. But he's kind of turned that around the last couple of years. 2020, I know we say it doesn't count, but he had a pretty decent postseason then. He is the ace of that rotation. That Brewers offense, though, has been much better in the second half. But I'm not going against Freddie. I'm not going against Mookie. And just the different role players, the guys that they all traded for that had negative WAR at the deadline, which decided that they were all of a sudden going to be great players, right? So they continue to plug and play. Jason Hayward has been better this year. There is some veteran leadership. You've got Outman, whoever you put out there, really. Taylor continues to do it in the playoffs year after year. So whoever it is, the Dodgers seemingly get it done. It's going to be a close series. I think this does go 7, honestly. I would say this is a 7-game series, and if Woodruff comes back, that may tilt the scales. But I'm also going with the LA Dodgers to move on to the NLCS.
I'm going to put an asterisk next to mine. If
Woodruff, how it works.
I know. That's why I filled out 2 brackets. There were no rules to this. If Woodruff pitches in that series, I gotta pick the Brewers. But for bracket purposes, I wrote down the Dodgers because Woodruff is not pitching, and his press conference today, brought him to tears. It didn't really sound good.
No.
In the way that Counsell said it, he basically said he's definitely out for the wild card series. We don't know if he'll pitch in the playoffs at all, is what he said. So that's doesn't leave much room for hope.
Good call, Joe. That's going to go 5 games because it's the NLDS, not the NLCS. So 5-game series.
This wild card series is still wild. It's still wild to have the extra series.
Yeah, it's throwing me off. Normally the second round is always 7 games. I forgot to throw this earlier. Diamondbacks, you're gone too. So we've all pretty much got the same Final 4, except heading into the NLCS. Well, Michael, you've got the Astros, probably the smarter of the 3 of us. But on the probably biggest matchup that everybody watching cares about, the Phillies versus the Braves. Who do you think is going to win that, Wesley?
I think we got something for the Phillies after they put us out last year. I think this one's personal. This one's personal. I don't where are my hat and glasses at? I should have put hat and glasses on for that. This one's personal. I think the Atlanta Braves are going to take it to the Phillies this year. I think it's our turn.
Yeah, the Braves. We've talked about the Braves pitching faltering, but Strider's going to come through. Max is going to step up. Is Charlie Morton maybe going to be back for this series?
I don't think he can pitch. He can't pitch though because he went on the IL.
Was he in the 15?
I think he was on the 15, so he wouldn't be eligible for the first series. I think he'd be eligible to come back for the second series. I could be wrong, but I thought it was last weekend that it happened. and it hasn't been a full 2 weeks. So, in order for that to happen, I believe there would have to be an injury in the roster, and he would be the injury replacement. But
don't worry, they'll find a way.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
October 7th is the day he's eligible to come off.
Yeah, so that would be this upcoming Saturday, which would be the second series. Oh, so he would be eligible. Yeah. So sorry, I'm still thinking at the next 3 days. Yeah, he'll be eligible. He'll be on the roster.
Even there, you've got Bryce Elder, who you kept thinking would peter off towards the end of the year, and the dude never did. I've got Atlanta moving on.
Go ahead, Wes. What were you saying?
Was it retroactive?
No, I don't believe it was retroactive because he got hurt and then they put him on the IL right away. But if it's October 7th, he'll be fine to pitch in Game 3 if he's healthy. That's the thing. Is he going to be healthy when he comes back? And that's the thing. There's no rationale for it being outside the revenge factor. The Braves will. I'm sorry. I'm reading it, but I should just pop it up on the screens. The Braves definitely going to want this series badly. I just don't know about the pitching. You mentioned it at the top of the show. That pitching has not been the best in the second half of the season. They've been one of the worst pitching staffs, especially in the month of September. Now, obviously, they weren't playing for as much in the month of September, but between August and September, they had the 20th best ERA in baseball. Makes it the 11th worst. And then when you look at the rotation, it's just been hit or miss. Now, the bullpen is a question mark. They had the 4th worst bullpen ERA in the month of September. Again, September stats in a team where you already kind of locked it up and you could play loosey-goosey for the last couple of weeks. Sure, but they don't. That's the thing. It's a lot. It's not a light switch,
man. Like right. You can't just turn it on. Even those players who are the best in the world at what they do, it's so hard to just turn the light switch on and, be better. So
this is going to be another series. I think that goes 5. The Braves have home field advantage. I just have a hard time finding that they're going to shut down that Phillies lineup. So, see ya, Braves. I'm going with the Phillies moving on into the NLCS. That Phillies team, I think that they are on a mission to get back to the World Series. They were the team last year that nobody anticipated. They were kind of early, right? Nobody expected it. You got Trey Turner, who's been one of the best players in the second half. You've got Bryce Harper. Kyle Schwarber is Mr. Playoffs. Go look at his playoff career statistics. All he does is hit bombs. And Dave, who's a huge Philly fan, he says, love it. As far as Nick Castellanos, Mr. Doubles, you look up and down that lineup. It's really good. JT Realmuto, probably one of the best catchers in the game. Sure, the Braves have the best lineup. And I do think that they have the best team overall, but they're not playing the best right now. The Phillies have turned it on in the month of September, really the last couple of weeks.
They have a killer bullpen too. They really do. Kimbrel, Soto, Alvarado, Strom, and Seranthony Dominguez.
And how do you say that guy's last name?
Orion
Kirkering.
Kirkering, yeah.
So and I don't think Kimbrel's going to be great, but you don't really need to rely on him. Let's be real. All Spray fans are ranking this is a home run machine. Yeah, that's another thing. The Phillies can hit the ball out almost as well as the Braves can, at least in the second half. They've got 6 players who hit 20-plus home runs this year, and Kyle Schwarber with 47. Now, he's not going to hit a single, but he'll hit a home run. Red Denver Redemption. That's what Dave's calling this as well. So I'm the only one on the outlier on that one. Michael, the only outlier on the ALCS. So, Michael, you have Baltimore and Houston. And a recap, Wes and I have Baltimore and Minnesota. So, Wes, you first. Minnesota or Baltimore moving on to the World Series?
Yeah, I got Baltimore in that one. Minnesota, I think, is the Cinderella story this year. But Baltimore is just such a complete team. It's very hard to bet against them. And look, in the last 2 weeks, I mean, just their pitching has been phenomenal. I mean, they have like a 2.59 ERA in the last 14 days in their bullpen and a 1.78 ERA from their starters. And I know Minnesota's offense has been hot. I think that's going to carry them through to the championship series, but very hard for me to bet against Baltimore. I think they are truly one of 3 or 4 complete teams in the MLB.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I had the same matchup, Baltimore and Minnesota. I think this is where the Minnesota luck runs out. The Baltimore Orioles probably going to have the better rotation, at least rest-wise, by the third round of the playoffs. I think offensively they're going to have probably the most consistent lineup, and that bullpen, I think, is much better than Minnesota's. Minnesota was in the worst division in baseball this year. Now, that's not a knock on them, but they just probably haven't played as much high leverage. There's another thing we talked about earlier is the fact that there's not a whole lot of experience there either, right? They've got some guys like Carlos Correa, who's been there. He's done that. But it's not generally a team that you're like, oh, yeah, these are big playoff guys. Like Pablo Lopez? No. You've got Sonny Gray. Not really. I don't think he's really played in the playoffs outside of when he was with Cincinnati, right? Did he pitch much with the Yankees in the playoffs? Oakland, he didn't make a ton of playoff noise there.
I think they made the playoffs 1 year while he was in Oakland.
So I'm also going to go with the Baltimore Orioles. So Minnesota Twins, see ya.
Crash.
Michael Burns, Baltimore or Houston? Who do you have moving on?
I'm going against you guys. Baltimore's not advancing. I've got Houston with the experience and their offense. And moving on.
I see what you're doing here. Keep going.
Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, Jeremy Pena, Brantley, Chase McCormick's been hot. Yordan Alvarez. I didn't even mention Kyle Tucker this whole time. Kyle Tucker.
Most underrated player in baseball.
Right. I haven't even mentioned him this entire time. I think the offense is going to carry them. I think they didn't get that last year out of Altuve and Bregman in the last 2 years. I think they're finally going to put it all together. Justin Verlander is going to carry them. Framber's going to give them a quality start, and I think they're moving on to the World Series again for the third year in a row.
I said I see what you're doing there because every team that Michael picked last year ended up losing whatever series that he picked them for. So I see exactly what you're doing there. And just to pop up a comment, Dave says Kirkering in the 7th, Trevor Hoffman in the 8th because he came out of retirement, and then Jose Alvarado in the 9th inning. Just kidding. Not Trevor Hoffman, but I wanted to get that in there. So heading on over to the NL side of things, we all have the Dodgers, and then you both picked Atlanta. I had Philly, so we'll let you both go. LA Dodgers versus Atlanta, the two best teams in the National League so far in 2023. Who do you have in the battle of the 1 and 2 seeds, gentlemen?
Go ahead, Burns. I think it's pretty obvious for me.
I've got Atlanta moving on. What you see that Atlanta can do. LA may have a two-headed monster, two MVP candidates in Mookie and Freddie, but I don't know that the rotation can handle a 7-game series like the Braves maybe built. I've got Atlanta beating LA, moving on to the World Series.
So you have an Atlanta and Baltimore series, Mr. West, and then Mr. Burns as Atlanta versus Houston. And like I told you already, I think it's a team that wants it more than they did last year. The Philadelphia Phillies, they're moving on for me. Nothing other than the fact that they're playing really well right now. The Dodgers were the best team in the second half of baseball amongst every team in baseball. I do think that their pitching staff scares me starting-wise. The Phillies got some questions there. Right after Lorenzen threw the no-hitter, he wasn't really great. You had Ranger Suarez, who, he was good in the playoffs though last year. He was a pretty good pitcher. He helped them win. You've got Taijuan Walker, who supposedly should be bringing you some depth, but if Nola gets back to Nola, you've got a true 1-2 in that rotation, and I think that speaks more than what the Dodgers can say, especially once you get past Kershaw. And if Kershaw's in the playoffs, I don't know what you got. So I'm going to go with the team that I think has the better lineup as well, the Philadelphia Phillies. So my matchup, Baltimore versus the Phillies. Wes, you're Baltimore versus Atlanta, and Michael, Houston versus Atlanta. Wes, I'm assuming, I think I know where you're going.
Yeah. I had to wear the shirt for 2021 just because, like, 2023, I think we're starting a dynasty here. I feel like we're gonna go, like the Giants did every odd year. We're gonna start winning championships. No, truthfully, even as a Braves fan, being biased and the homer pick, it is so difficult for me to like put all of that aside and not pick the Braves. Like it's just difficult for me to, other than the bullpen, which has not been great, right? I know that's the weakness. But the Braves have been there. They have the experience. They have, like Burns said, the Dodgers have 2 MVP candidates. The Braves also have 2 MVP candidates. Ozuna hit 40 home runs this year. In today's world and in the game of baseball where the environment is so offensive, I think the Braves have the best offense, and ultimately that's what I based my decision off of, was the 2 best offenses, Baltimore and Atlanta, because any ace can go out there on any given day and give up 8 earned runs, which we saw throughout the entire season. So I cannot say that won't be happening in the playoffs. Just because we're in the playoffs doesn't mean they're going to stop giving up runs. So I said, my bold prediction was we were going to score more runs in this playoff than any other playoff in the last 20 years. And I truly think that's going to be because Atlanta has the offense that it does. It's a historic offense. Baltimore is right there with them, not far behind. Minnesota's pretty hot. They're going to score a lot of runs. So I think this is just going to be an offensive playoffs. And I think the Braves have the best offense.
And what's your tiebreaker then?
As far as runs scored
in the World Series,
originally I wrote down 120, and I was like, So
in a 7-game series, 120 runs. Jesus.
No, 7-game series, I went like 57.
57. So Atlanta Braves and 57 for Wes. Michael, who do you have? Houston or Atlanta? This be a rematch of always doing it. Lee Corso. Okay, I've got a question for you. I got a question. Is Dan Howard holding a gun to you off camera right now? Blink twice if you're okay.
No, the Atlanta's, Ronald frickin' Acuna, the only player to do 70-40. If a guy gets a single, steals second, Ozzie Albies hits him in. If not, you got Austin Riley hitting him in. If not, you got Marcell Ozuna hitting a bomb for him. The team is just scary and scary fast as well. Those singles and the doubles. I don't know that pitchers can handle that kind of fire from the lineup 1 through 9. Every single bat is just scary. You don't get a break like, oh, all right, this guy is not a power monster. He's more of a contact machine. No, every freaking guy is going to put a ball over the wall against you. And that's why I don't think any other team has that. And ESPN is right to go through the article of their playoff preview and say, why can this team beat Atlanta? And to mention Atlanta every time, it's because they're such a powerhouse on offense. Strider will figure it out. Fried will come back. They've got Fried, Morton, Elder, Strider, and then Kyle Wright's nothing to moff at. He had a great year last year, injury riddled this year, but I'm sure he could give you 3 innings if needed.
Well, good thing is he doesn't have as many innings on his arm this year too, right? So
right,
a little fresher.
So
that sometimes plays well.
Like Wes just said, the Giants of the 2010s, it's on instead of even years, it's on odd years. This is a rematch of the 2021 World Series, and the Braves take it from the Astros again.
Wow. So Michael just put the kibosh on the Braves. That's what we're going.
Just all over my microphone.
No, I totally agree. I mean, you go Acuna, Albies, Riley, Olsen, Ozuna.
I didn't even mention Olsen. The dude has how many home runs? I didn't even
54, right? 54. I believe if you took
RBIs.
I think if you took all 54 of his home runs away, the Braves would still lead the league in home runs this year. That's how incredible it was. You got Ozuna, then you got Sean Murphy, and then at shortstop Arcia, who had an all-star season. Who am I forgetting? I mean, you got
Harris, who hit 9.
a rookie of the year last year. He started to hit, I think, 7 and 8 this past week. But yeah, he's hit Eddie Rosario, who was a World Series hero and playoff hero in 2021. So you look across that entire team. Sure, and every time that they steal a base or hit a home run, they're going to pause the game, have a video montage of that player, and it's going to just really throw off the pitcher for the other team. I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
You said 40-70. It was actually 40-71. I don't know if you know that, Michael, but he also stole the base and took the base. They did a 15-minute montage. I'm just kidding. Maybe a little bitter here or there or not. So you both have the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series. I'm going with a team from their same division. I already had them knock out the Braves in the NLDS, and that was the Philadelphia Phillies, and that's who I have winning the World Series this year over the Baltimore Orioles. Better experienced team. I think Baltimore Orioles finally run out of gas. Like I said, they're the kind of team that they have that ignorance, but I think when it comes to crunch time, the Phillies are going to be able to pull on the fact that we've been here, we've done this. Who knows? It could be another 2010, 2011 Texas Rangers. Who knows? Or was it 11 and 12? I don't remember what it was, but I know that the Rangers went back-to-back years, and I know they lost to the Cardinals in 2011. But this Phillies team was built for this time of the year, right? That's why they went out and got Trey Turner. That's why they went out and got those additional rotational arms with Taijuan Walker. When Ranger was your number 3 coming into the season, now he's potentially your number 4 or your 5. I mean, you could be going with your 3, but you've got Taijuan, you've got Michael Lorenzen, you've got a deep rotation. That lineup, it's not as scary as Atlanta, but I think that by the time a lot of these Baltimore pitchers haven't pitched this deep into a season before, right? So where's the attrition come there? Grayson Rodriguez, I don't think he's made it past, 150 innings in his career. We're talking Dean Kramer. The only one who had is Jack Flaherty. And is he even in the rotation anymore, right?
So, the bullpen,
right.
So.
You've got John Means, who just came back, who's going to give you a fresher arm, but he's coming off Tommy John, I believe, right? Didn't he miss the last year and a half with Tommy John?
He did.
Sometimes you're controlled there. So Baltimore has the best, I think, overall team, but by that point in time, I'm predicting that they're just going to hit a wall and they're just going to finally fall flat. I may need to change my total runs. I went with 38, but that's because I think it's more so not going to be a 6 or 7 game series. I think maybe a 5 game series, possibly a 6. But I think Philly comes out on top, and I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Phillies as my World Series champs. So I don't have a Philly bet. We're going to find one of those soon, but I got to get it out Citizen Bank.
I'm about 45 minutes from the Philly spring training. I'll send you a Phillies hat.
Okay, I'm
if
sure
they win
it'll
the
be.
World Series.
If they win the World Series, all right, I'll hold you up on that. My thing is, I buy a hat at every stadium I go to. That's why I've got like 21 out of 30 hats. So, and I got to go get the Orioles' new logo.
I've got one more bold prediction for you guys.
All righty, let's hear it.
If the Orioles do make it to the ALCS, Jackson Holliday will make his MLB debut in the playoffs.
I was waiting for it.
He will be the 4th player ever to make his MLB debut during the playoffs.
And in the World Series, he'll be playing then.
And the World Series will be playing then. If he
well,
makes,
you wouldn't. You don't.
Not for me, but for your brackets.
Right. Wow, that's a bold prediction for sure. Okay, real off the cuff here. Who is going to be the World Series MVP then? You both have the Atlanta Braves winning it. Obviously, it's most likely going to be an Atlanta Brave. Or I know we don't really give off playoff. Okay, so NLCS and ALCS players, they give those awards. But overall, who do you think would be the most outstanding player in the playoffs? Is it going to be Ronald?
Ronald McDonald, baby. Ronald McDonald. Absolutely. Dude's electric.
I think he's going to do what he does.
He didn't get to play in 2021. This is his year.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for me to go against him, but also I could see Riley getting hot. I could see Olsen getting hot. Man, that's tough.
I would have Matt Olsen as a close second. The dude is dangerous right now. It seems like if you hang one over the inside part of the plate there, it's gone.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I think I might go with Max Fried if he's healthy. Right. Something about his demeanor, man, in the playoffs is just he refuses to get beat. I don't know. It's just his demeanor is on the mound when he's in the playoffs is next level, assuming the blister isn't bothering him.
Yeah.
But
With,
yeah,
with what you just said there, I want to ask Michael, does Max Fried kind of remind you of Kyle Hendricks in a way?
In what way?
Just his demeanor on the field, right? Like
Just the professor, calm, cool, collected.
yes. It's one of
nothing
those things
seems
where,
to phase him.
yes, that's it.
I can get you there. All right, here's a good question from a viewer, Joe Campbell. We've talked to him a couple times tonight. He says, name a player that each team in the playoffs needs to click in order to make a run.
Ooh, that's a great question.
So let's just start with the AL in Toronto. I'm going to probably say it's got to be Vlad, right? Vlad has been the guy who has been disappointing all year, but that's a guy who would have won MVP if it wasn't for some guy named Shohei Ohtani a couple of years ago, and has that pedigree. If he clicks, I think that offense is in good shape in that playoff series, but it's going to need him to really be the guy who stands up and kind of puts his name on the stage finally, right? Like stands up and on the biggest stage has his biggest moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. Vlad needs to step up, be the guy that they thought they were getting all year. I'm with you, Vlad Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, I think it's easy to like look at Bo Bichette because Bichette is their guy right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been waiting for Vlad to kind of break out of the slump all year, right? And they've been pretty good all year, but without Vlad being that MVP caliber, I just don't know that they go very far. So yeah, I gotta agree with you.
I think their best player is Kevin Gossman, and he's gonna do well overall. But they don't. He's gonna come around. They need Vlad to come around.
Yeah. Number 5, Texas Rangers. Michael, do you have a guy on the Rangers that you think needs to step up, or really just?
So I mentioned Adolis Garcia. I mentioned Evan Carter. Corey Seager. If Corey Seager can be Corey Seager that they've been getting all year, and he's an MVP caliber type player. He's pretty close to Shohei, and he'll get MVP votes. If Corey Seager can be a weapon in that offense every time he comes up, I think Texas could succeed.
For me, I'm going to go a little differently. It kind of seems like Adolis Garcia is the guy that somehow just ignites that lineup. Like Corey Seager does what he does, and you get what you expect from him. But whenever Adolis Garcia is going, the Rangers score 15 runs a game. And you know, when he gets going, that offense is just scary. So for me, I think it's going to be Adolis.
Yeah, good call.
That was going to be my pick, but for sense of let's mix it up a little bit, I totally agree. Adolis was the guy who really just pumped up that lineup, hit the big home runs, and when they were rocking, he was at the best. He led the league with RBIs for the first half of the season, I believe. So a stud there. I'm going to go to the pitching staff because that's the one thing I think that they are in the most trouble for. The easy answer would probably be Chapman, right? Because he has been terrible. But I'm going to go with an off-the-cuff name, and that's John Gray. He was drafted number 2 overall, or 3 overall.
3,
right behind Chris Bryant.
Rockies,
to the Rockies. Supposed to be an ace when you're drafted number 3 overall. He has not really pitched like that in his career. He had some good spurts this year with Texas. If Texas is going to make a run, they're going to need some starting pitching. Jordan Montgomery, Nathan Eovaldi. If Scherzer comes back, which probably doubtful, but then Gray. Gray's going to be the guy that's going to have to anchor that team. Eovaldi, possibly. Eovaldi's done it before, though. We've seen him do it. We've never seen Gray do it before. So that's going to be a guy that needs to click in order for, I think, Texas to make a run.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, Ethan and his boy Adonis Garcia.
Adonis Garcia for $1.
So let's go with the number 4, Tampa Bay Rays. Who's the guy that you think needs to step up? Wes.
Wander Franco. Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
The
great
honestly,
school.
that's a tough one, man, because it just is all over the place for them. But I think their lineups just kind of do what it does, but Randy Rosarina is their spark plug. When he gets going, man, they're pretty hard to beat. So for me, it's Randy. Bring out the Mexican hat, bring out the cowboy boots, man. Put it on, win a series, and give me a little bit of this.
There it is.
Bernsey?
So I'm going to go with their only lefty bat outside of Luke Raley, if Luke Raley's healthy, and Brandon Lowe. If Brandon Lowe can hit some home runs for Tampa Bay will keep succeeding.
That's another name that I was thinking of, was Brandon Lowe. But again, I'm going to go with the pitching staff. Who's their starting pitcher? Right, Zach Eflin. That's going to be the guy that I think needs to click. He's been on teams that have gone to the playoffs, that have played in the playoffs. He was part of the Red Sox, wasn't he, I believe? And then ended up with the Phillies last year, and he came out of the bullpen. So he's got that experience, but now it's his time to kind of lead that team. And if he clicks and becomes the top starting pitcher in that rotation, I think that they've got a shot.
Yeah.
Your smile's over there, Mikey.
I'm laughing at Ethan and Garcia there.
Okay, so number 3 is the Minnesota Twins.
Royce Lewis. If his bat goes, they will go.
Yeah.
They got the rotation. They don't really need to carry on one guy. But if Royce Lewis can come and be healthy, they'll go.
I like that pick. That probably would have been my number 1 pick. But I'll change it up here. I'm gonna go with Sonny Gray, because if they're not winning, Pablo Lopez is really good, but he's likely going to be matched up with some aces if they go through the playoffs. So it's really going to be on Sonny Gray in that game 2, game 3, whenever he does start to have a good outing. And he's been really good all year. The numbers don't really show how good he's actually been. He was a Cy Young candidate for like the first 3 months of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, Sonny Gray has got to be good. There were some games this year where he did have some blow-ups. He needs to avoid that if the Twins want to have any success in the playoffs.
I agree with both of those names, but I'm going to go with probably the most obvious name out there, and that is Carlos Correa. This is what you signed him for. This is why you got him. A guy with playoff experience, rookie of the year. He's played and won in a World Series. He's played in the playoffs multiple times. He brings you that experience. He's had a shit year. 230 batting average, has not lived up to the contract. This is why you signed him. If the Twins are going to do well, he's going to need to step up, and he's going to need to be the leader of that team, which they're paying him for. And he's going to need to be the playoff guy that he can be if they're going to have a shot. So that's my thoughts for the Twins.
Yeah, I see it.
Number 2, Houston Astros. Michael?
How about just their whole offense? Not their whole offense. Let's go with Alex Bregman. If Alex Bregman can show up, the dude can be electric. The dude can hit for power. He can hit for average. If Alex Bregman can do both of those, he didn't do it in 2021 when they lost to the Braves last time. If Alex Bregman shows up and can win a World Series MVP, maybe the sides will turn a little bit.
Wes?
I got Justin Verlander. It's the guy you went out and got at the trade deadline. You know, he's the guy that everybody knows who he is. Future Hall of Famer. He's been there a ton of times, won a World Series with him. So he's been all over the map this year as far as performance-wise. But his last 2 starts, I think he's been pretty good, if I remember correctly. I don't remember if he even gave up an earned run. If Justin Verlander isn't Justin Verlander in the playoffs, they're going to have a hard time matching up in their game 2 and game 3.
I totally agree with you there, but I'm also going to go to the free agent side of things. I would say Yuli Gurriel was kind of the guy who came through at the big moments in the past for the Astros, right? He always had the big hit, the big play. They signed Jose Abreu to come in and be Yuli's replacement, and this year just didn't seem to work out, right? He had a rough start. Still wound up hitting 90 RBIs, 18 bombs, but OPS was 679, I believe. Not what you were expecting. He's a veteran. He's played in the playoffs before, not far. He played with the White Sox, so you can't expect much. But Jose Abreu is going to be my player that I think the Houston Astros needs to click in order for them to make a deep run, because you've got the guys who've been there and done that before. You can rely on Altuve, Bregman, Jordan, Kyle Tucker, even Chaz McCormick, and Jeremy Pena. Didn't he win the World Series MVP last year? Right?
Yes, he
so
did.
you've got those guys, but it's going to need to be a guy who you sign. And that's, in my mind, Jose Abreu. So that is my, not pick to click, but the guy who needs to click. And then finally, the Baltimore Orioles. We already know it's going to be Jackson Holliday for Michael. So, Wes, who is it for you?
Gunnar Henderson. God, that guy's electric, man. If he gets going and he's hitting doubles and home runs, their offense goes. So I love to watch that guy play.
Michael?
So I'll take that. And the Orioles have the offense, but if they're going to win the close ball games, they need Yennier Cano to be able to close out the ball games. He hasn't been doing it all year. He's maybe not going to be used to these high leverage situations that Felix Bautista was able to manhandle all year. But if Cano can come in and secure every save situation that he's put in, the Orioles will succeed.
Yeah. He was the setup guy coming into the year and then had to take that over when Bautista got shut down. And I don't even know if we told our audience, I believe he's having Tommy John surgery, isn't he?
He is. Yep.
Yes.
So I'm going to go a little off the cuff on this one. What do we say wins in the playoffs, right? Pitching and defense, but also home runs, right? Home runs at big times. You said Gunnar. He was tied with another guy on the team for home runs with 28, and that's Santander. They're going to need a big homer in a big moment, and that's going to be the guy who's going to need to hit a long ball at some point in the playoffs in a big moment. And I think if he does that or comes through in a clutch moment, then it's going to be hard to stop that team.
Did you name a player?
I said Santander.
Oh, Santander. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
I thought you were building up to the moment and forgot to mention the player.
I thought I said Anthony Santander. Did I?
Sorry.
You did. Yeah, you did. You definitely did.
Michael's still worried about
That
wearing a
was- that
Braves
was-
jersey with Dan pointing a gun at his head. Sorry, go ahead, Wes.
Sweating.
When you said 28 home runs and you tied Gunnar, I was like, okay, Santander. And you said Santander. And I think Burns got lost in the ether there.
He's like, Jackson Holiday,
waiting-
Jackson
I was
Holiday,
waiting-
Jackson Holiday.
Jackson Holiday, he hit 28 home
Jackson
runs
Holiday
in the
comes
minors.
Yes, so that is going to be my pick. So let's go to the NL real quick. The Arizona Diamondbacks, that 6th seed in the NL. Michael, who do you think's got to be the guy?
I mean, Corbin Carroll's the cop out, I think, answer there. Let's go with Lourdes Gurriel. I think Alec Thomas, who did I just mention? I'm blanking on his name. I just said him. Corbin Carroll. Corbin Carroll and
Your
Tommy
other man
Pham.
crush?
Yes, I think those three will do well. But I think that fourth guy to create some depth, Lourdes Gurriel, will do it for him.
Wes?
I got Christian Walker. If he can get hot and start hitting some home runs, I think everything else will start clicking for them. I think Corbin Carroll will do what Corbin Carroll does. You know, those type athletes just kind of do what they do. Even if they're not hitting the ball, they find a way to, affect the game. But Christian Walker, if he's hitting home runs, Diamondbacks are having a good day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Christian Walker, I think, is the most underrated first baseman in baseball and doesn't get enough play. He would be one that I would lean towards, but I'm going to go. Nick Ahmed's going to have to stand up and step up.
Oh,
I mean, sorry.
oh,
Just kidding. Sorry, that's up below the belt. No, it's going to be the guy who's making the game one start for them, and that is Brandon Pfaadt, excuse me. Yeah, no, that was the joke at the beginning of the season, Wes, is we didn't know exactly how to say his name, so I was like, it just kind of sounds like a fart, and that's how it's spelled, Pfaadt. It sounds like he farted. So Brandon Pfaadt, he's going to be the guy who's got to set the tone, right? He was their number one prospect outside of Corbin Carroll. He was a pitching prospect, their best That was easy for me to say. He was their number one pitching prospect coming into this season. He had high regards. He had most strikeouts in minors last year, I believe, right?
Right.
He didn't live up to the bill in the first half, got beat up, but now he's turned it around in the second half. He's got the biggest game of his career, and he's going to need to set the tone. In order for them to win a series, he's going to have to be the player who comes out and shuts down that Brewers team, and then ultimately down the road, he'd be one of the game 2 or 3 starters, I think, against the Dodgers, so he would have to shut them down as well. So I think it's Brandon Pfaadt. We're really boring Michael.
Sorry, I must be tired or something. I cannot stop yawning.
Miami
The
Marlins.
5 seed.
Yeah, the 5 seed.
I'll jump right in. Josh Bell. If Josh Bell can be Josh Bell of the first year Pittsburgh Pirates and put some balls over the wall, the Marlins might have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Wes?
Yeah, for me, we talked about Alcantara's out, Yuri Perez is out, so I think Jesus Luzardo kind of has to step up and be that guy, which he's shown flashes of. He's been really good all year. Like Michael said, he should have 15 wins if he didn't have, 7 blown leads this year. But yeah, if Luzardo is there and he's keeping them in the games, I think they'll have a chance.
It's a good pick. I'm going to be going with Jake Berger, though. Once he came over from Miami, from Chicago, it was him and Bell who were supposed to be the thump in that lineup. And they came in and they helped turn that offense around in the second half. Now, are they the best offense? No, but like I said, when it came to Santander, home runs and timely moments, Jake Berger's got 34 this year. He batted .303 with Miami, an .860 OPS, his OPS plus 130. That needs to continue in the playoffs if they're going to have a shot. And if he hits it, and I mean, Jorge Soler is in that lineup. I think he's back to being healthy. You've got 3 guys who can hit the ball in the ballpark, and they're probably going to be pitching the Berger out of the 3 of them.
Hey, think about it for the Marlins. You put, Luis Ariz, and if Soler is back, and top of the first inning, Ariz gets on, Soler hits a 2-run bomb. I mean, it could be 2-0 in the first pretty easily for the Marlins.
And Jazz, right? Jazz can put the ball out. They've got some sneaky thump. It's going to be a good series, but I'm going to go with Jake Berger. So number 4, the Philadelphia Phillies.
I want to mention a pitcher in Aaron Nola, but I'll go ahead. I'll just say Aaron Nola. I was going to mention Trey. I was going to mention Trey Turner. I was going to mention Trey Turner, but I think the offense will carry enough that if Trey Turner doesn't go, the rest of the offense will go. But if Aaron Nola can step up and be a 2-headed monster of Zach Wheeler and Nola, they will succeed.
That's a good one.
Yeah, actually, I love that pick. For me, man, I got to go with the low-hanging fruit here and say Bryce Harper because he's Bryce Harper and he lives for these moments. That is his entire being, is being there in that moment. I mean, hitting the home run like he did last year to put them into the World Series, like Bryce Harper, dude. If they're gonna go, he's got to go.
Mine is going to be Rhys Hoskins because, is he going to come back? Is he going to do the Kyle Schwarber?
We talked about it.
That was your prediction at the beginning of the season. Michael Burns' prediction was the Phillies were going to win the World Series and that Rhys Hoskins was going to have a Kyle Schwarber moment. I'm going to go with Alec Boehm. That lineup is deep, but if Alec Boehm is hitting, then you've got 6-7 guys who are going to be hard to get out. Trey Turner, you've got Real Muto, Castellanos, Schwarber, Harper. It's a tough lineup, and you start getting production from Boehm. Oof, it's going to be.
Hoskins is facing live pitching this week.
That's why I said it. I pulled it up. I was like, Hoskins might be back. Wow. Rhys Hoskins could be the guy that clicks in the end of the playoffs. Think of like an NLCS or a World Series comeback. Maybe not playing a bunch of first base, but pinch hitting or DHing. You can put Bryce at first base if need be. Man, that would be it. But number 3, the Milwaukee Brewers. Brandon Woodruff. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
go ahead,
Woodruff. This is a tough one for me.
I'll go out there and I'll say Christian Yelich. He's your leader. He's your guy. He's going to be the guy who is kind of overlooked, right? They've had other guys step up between Santana. Even the rookies have had great stretches here. Willem Contreras has had a great month of September. Yelich doesn't need to be relied on as much, but you need to rely on him as your veteran. And that's going to be, if the Brewers win, he's going to need to get hot.
Yeah, I don't really know outside of maybe Yelich or Damas on the offensive side who I would turn to for that. I think for the Brewers real difference is they have Burns, they have Peralta, who's been incredible in the second half, and they did have Woodruff before today. So for me, I guess it's going to be a guy that whoever their third starter is going to have to pick up the slack there, because I think that's really their only way of tipping the scales. They're certainly not going to make it on the offensive side. I think they're one of the weaker offenses. So for me, if they're going to win, they have to pitch well to get it to the back end of their bullpen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their offense is better in the second half, but they're one of the weaker offenses. Is runs scored overall on the season. Where were my notes on that? I had it yesterday. The Milwaukee Brewers runs scored 728. That is the second worst in the playoffs, only better than the Miami Marlins. They're the devil, 666, but in a minus 56 run differential. Yeah.
I'm almost say.
Michael, did you say a name?
I would just say their two-hole hitter. If their two-hole hitter can perform in Willie Contreras, they will succeed.
So then we go to the number 2 team, and that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Who's going to need to be the player that clicks?
Freaking Will Smith, because he does it every year. Every freaking year, Will Smith kills us in the playoffs. So I'm going Will Smith.
I'll go with Bobby Miller. If Kershaw can show up. If Bobby Miller can show up, that's two lefties right there that can put out some strikeout potential and be.
Bobby Miller's a righty.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking. He bats lefty. Okay, excuse me. He bats lefty. If they get in a situation where they remove the DH and Bobby Miller has to bat, they got a lefty bat there to come into it.
I was starting to question my thoughts on it too. I was like,
sorry. Huh? I don't know why they still put the bat on the guys who pitch anymore. They don't.
Hey, Wainwright got an at bat
this year.
He did.
Yeah, in the final series this weekend, he got a pinch hit. He didn't get a hit, but he pinch hit on Friday night.
Pinch hit. So Bobby Miller. Bobby Miller can lengthen that short rotation of the Dodgers. And then I even throw an honorable mention of Emmett Shaheen. If Emmett Shaheen could give you 4 solid innings, they will succeed.
And then who else are you going to add? Because you've already said Kershaw, Bobby Miller, and then Shaheen. So you might as well just say Lance Lynn, and then maybe Ryan Yarbrough, Pepio possibly as well.
JD Martinez and James Outman.
So you mentioned JD Martinez. He's had a great stretch as of late, but I'm going to go with a guy who started the season off as the April Player of the Month in the NL, and that's Max Muncy. He's going to be a guy that needs to step up for them because they're going to be trying to pitch around Freddie and Mookie as much as they possibly can. JD's going to be the right-handed hitter that you're going to have to rely on, and I think it's going to have to be Max Muncy from the left side. He's that veteran. He's kind of the Justin Turner of that team now that Turner's gone. The guy who can play all over the field, third, first, second, DH. He's a lefty. He's going to need to bring that thump in the playoffs and hit home runs in big moments for, I think, the Dodgers to have a shot, because their lineup's just not as deep as it has been in years past. And if Muncy is hot, it extends that lineup deeper and just makes it harder to get outs. So then number 1, the Atlanta Braves.
I think I'm not going to say Ronald Acuna because he's going to be there and the rest of the offense will be there. But the question mark of the pitching side of things, Spencer Strider. Spencer Strider can give you 2 games to start and just shove it. That's 2 wins. Mm-hmm. If Spencer Strider gives you 2 wins, the Braves will succeed.
For me, that the only place you can go in the Braves lineup right now to get an out is either Darno or Murphy. So I'm going to say whoever's starting that night behind the plate, whether it's Darnold or Murphy, that's really the only. And it's not even a week out. I mean, that's just the weakest link, and that's
Right.
if that's still a tough out. So if those two guys are firing on all cylinders, man, it's going to be hard to pitch around the Braves offense. I mean, 1 through 9. I mean, you got one of those two guys are hitting 8, 9. That's tough, regardless of how good the pitcher is.
Yeah, you mentioned the lineups, and you mentioned Spencer Strider. I'm going to go with the bullpen, which has been probably the weakest length of this team, as you've mentioned multiple times. That's what's giving you kind of the agita, right? Like you're, who's it going to be? I could go with the closer Iglesias, but I'm going to go with AJ Minter.
Luke Jackson.
You should say Luke Jackson. AJ Minter, here's your setup guy, right? That lefty out of the pen, or is he a righty? No, he's a lefty.
He's lefty, yeah.
And I was just gonna say he bats righty.
He bats righty.
No, he's your lefty reliever. When it comes to higher leverage situations, he had a really rough start to the year, a 9 ERA in April, but kept on getting better and better and better. I think he dealt with some injuries halfway through the season, but he's healthy now. He had a better September, I believe. And he's going to need to have an October of shutdown baseball to get you to Iglesias and not let the game slide away in the 8th or 7th inning, depending on when he comes in. And if that bullpen gets short up, I don't think they're stopping the Braves, but I think that's their weak link.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, guys. This was fun. Any other thoughts on the postseason? Any other bold predictions? Any other thoughts for our listeners and viewers on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Podcasts, or on YouTube here tonight?
Did I mention Jackson Holiday?
Yeah, that's why your screen's all smudgy.
Wes?
MILB awards were tonight.
Oh, that's right.
I'll give you some Cubs. The Cubs did have two guys that were up for nomination. Cade Horton did not win pitching prospect of the year, but the best one I liked was the minor league alter ego names. I'll send it to you guys. Really funny. I'm trying to find the actual winner here.
Alter ego names, as in like the team names, like the Udder
team
Tuggers.
names.
Yeah, like the Udder Tuggers.
Yes, the Wisconsin Udder Tuggers was one of them, but the Amarillo Calf Prize was the winner of the alter ego minor league names. Brandon, I think you need to add that hat to your collection.
I'm going to need to. That's definitely certain. I gotta go check him. That's the Sod Poodles, I'm assuming, right?
I believe it is, yeah.
It's the D-backs AA affiliate.
Yeah, the Amarillo Sod Poodles. That's cool. Two kind of miscellaneous thoughts here that I wanted to talk about. I mentioned it, at least I put it out on our Twitter accounts and our Facebook accounts, but time of game this year, 2 hours and 42 minutes. That is the quickest pace of play since 1984. So I'd say that the pitch clock did its job. Games were faster. There were more runs. There was more action. Stolen bases were up. Part of that is because of the pitch clock. Part of that is because of the throw over to first base rule. And also bigger bases, I do think, had an impact in that, creating an additional 4 inches of less running room. But faster pace of play. But on top of that, attendance is up 70,747,000. That is the highest since 2017. So that beats 18 and 19, which were pre-COVID seasons. And I just think that this is going to continue to start going up.
Juice ball era, man. We broke the record from the juice ball era. That's
so
nice.
Yeah, I'm excited for what's going on with baseball. We're in the playoffs. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks here. So don't forget to subscribe here. We've just went through our brackets. We gave our predictions. We gave our bold predictions. And this bracket challenge, we're going to be giving away not only some sunglasses, I believe, knock-around sunglasses for your favorite team. So comment what your favorite team is. Also, if we can get to 1,000 subscribers, I'll give away a bottle of Weller bourbon. Special Reserve. So if we
Oh.
can get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the World, not by the end of the World Series, let's say by the end of this upcoming weekend, because we are only 165 away. If we can get to 1,000 subscribers on our Barrels and Barrels podcast YouTube channel, so that's at Barrels, the letter N, Barrels Pod, I'll add as the winning prize a bottle of Weller Special Reserve to our bracket challenge. So all you got to do, you see this graphic, it's up there on your screen. You can find this in our link tree. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio podcasts, this has to be turned in by the end of the first inning of Game 1, which would be the Twins and the Toronto Blue Jays. First pitch is 3:08 Eastern. So you don't have a whole lot of time here. But go download this, send it in to us via email, and that email is scrolling there at the bottom of your screen it's barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. You must be subscribing to our YouTube channel in order to win. And also tag your friends on Instagram. This post will be up on Instagram as well. Share this, tag your friends, let us know your favorite team and what team would be the glasses that you would get. We can send you any one of the 30 teams. So they're pretty cool sunglasses. I wish I had a picture here of them. That is one thing I forgot to do. But head on over to our YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. Last check, we were at 835 subscribers. If we can get to 1,000, I'll throw in a bottle, and that is by this upcoming Sunday. Look out for some more baseball talk as we get towards the end of the week, as round 1 will end on Thursday. In some series, most likely Wednesday. And we'll have another recap of our bracket and a talk on what happened and what we're expecting as we head on into the weekend. Gents, any final words? Not
Look
yet,
forward
Michael.
to look
Go
forward
ahead,
to
Wes.
it.
Yeah, I look forward to it as well. So don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Barrels and Barrels Pod. If you're a fan of bourbon and you want more bourbon talk, we've got a bourbon podcast dropping this week. That is at BNB Bourbon on YouTube, and it's going to be on the same channel of Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, and iHeartRadio podcasts, where you can stream us wherever you get your podcasts. Email us, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com, and we're on Twitter at Barrels and Barrels. You can probably find us a lot more active on Twitter or X throughout the playoffs because it's just an easier go-to social media app. But thank you for riding along with us for the last hour and 57 minutes. It's been fun. I'm excited for playoff baseball. Wes, you just mentioned that. I am as well. And Michael Burns, any final words, or are you just going to take us home?
Let's go.